What if I told you that right now, somewhere in America, there's a successful couple staring at their seven-figure portfolio, knowing they could retire tomorrow, but convinced they need to work just 3 more years? And what if I told you that decision, that seemingly prudent, responsible decision, might be the biggest mistake of their life? Our guest today carries the weight of watching this exact scenario play out with devastating consequences, and it transformed everything about how he approaches financial planning. Andrew LaFontain traded a promising career as a CPA with a Big Five firm for something far more meaningful, helping individuals and families find not just financial security, but the confidence to actually enjoy it. After 20 years in the trenches of financial planning, he's distilled his hard-won wisdom into Beyond Enough, a guide to financial confidence and meaningful impact. Andrew LaFontain, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Paul. How about you?
I'm doing great. Congratulations on the Amazon bestseller.
Thank you. Thank you. That was quite a journey.
Yeah,
It was humbling. It was great. We were very proud of the book we put out, and it was gratifying to some of the comments and the results. So I
yeah,
appreciate that.
definitely. In today's interview, we're going to dive into your new book, which I'm holding here in my hands, Beyond Enough, a guide to financial confidence and meaningful impact. And I love the cover of it.
Thank
So
you.
if someone listening can't see it, but it's a great book. It's on Amazon now, number one bestseller. And I just want to dive into just a little bit about your background and then just start talking about some of the concepts that you talk about in the book so
Sure.
people can get to know both you as well as the essentially the message of the book. Tell me a little bit about your background. And as I understand it, you started out as an accountant and today you're a financial planner. What was that transition like? What led you
Sure.
from one to the other?
Yeah. So, like you said, I started in accounting. I actually started with a Big Five public accounting firm, and when I went to school, I've always enjoyed numbers because with numbers, I feel like there's always an answer. And one of my professors at school, he said, if you understand the numbers, you understand accounting, then you understand the language of business. And that really appealed to me. Okay, well, I want to do that. And gotten into my career, I'm on the audit side with a public accounting firm. And so we're helping very large companies be a little more efficient and make a little more money, which, believe it or not, is not as gratifying as it sounds. When I did some self-reflection on what do I really want to do for a career? Like, where do I want to have my impact? And I thought if I can help people make good decisions, good financial decisions, that would be a satisfying career path. At the time, I was looking at something to do at the time mortgages, or I could go the financial planning route. And I felt going the financial planning route would allow us to help people in more areas. And we haven't looked back. It's been a little over 20 years, and I'm extremely grateful that I was able to make that transition
Yeah,
into financial planning.
very cool. You've been a financial planner for around 20 years now. And so, what inspired you at this point in time to write your book, Beyond Enough?
Yeah, really, I'd say it's two things. One, I got to give all credit to my wife for inspiring the book.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of work in the community at trade shows. We talk to a lot of people. And over the years, she's heard me talk about the different stories of clients we've worked with or helped, or folks we've talked to that maybe we didn't help or couldn't help. And over the course of the last 20 years, we noticed some consistent themes around people making mistakes, not only people, but also advisors or people that had advisors. And so as we really looked at it, we came to the general premise that I really truly believe that everybody wants to have some kind of impact greater than themselves, right? Whether that's on the church, their community, their family, whatever it is, that's individual for everybody, right? But before they can actually have that impact, they need to feel comfortable or confident that they are doing or have enough to meet or satisfy their financial goals. And if they don't feel that way, they don't have the confidence necessary to move forward to have that impact. And so the book was inspired by my wife saying, hey, you tell these stories, you should go write a book. And then as we reflect on, well, if I'm going to write a book, what is the message we want to get across? And the message is one of having impact, to be able to do things bigger, better, and greater than yourself. And I got to be honest, writing a book, the reason I never did it is I don't like writing. So I appreciate my wife pushing me in that direction.
Sure.
So I give her all the credit for really inspiring and making that happen. So I'm very grateful to
Yeah,
her for
yeah, definitely. And just so I understand that, and just so both I and our audience understands it clearly, what I understand you to mean is that retirement and having enough is one of those things that we never know our expiration date. And so we can have 1 million in the bank or in investments, or we could have 2 million, but because the future is inherently unpredictable in terms of when we're going to pass, it's challenging to know, do I have enough? And the number one fear, as I understand it for people, is running out of money. Is that the core issue that you're describing, or is there something else to it?
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
I think that's part of it. I think what it comes down to is having the financial confidence in that, because there is no crystal ball.
Yeah.
You don't have an expiration date. I don't have an expiration date. And I realize I can't take it with me.
Yep.
I can't impact that. What I can impact is what I am doing now. And what are the impact of my actions and my decisions now? And so if I'm comfortable that I'm doing the right things, saving enough, have enough, if I'm retired, have a good plan on income, then I can actually have a greater impact. Again, meaning we're only here temporarily, right? I have to be a good steward of the gifts I've been given. And so I want to be able to say, okay, I feel comfortable in what I'm confident in what I'm doing right now. And if I'm confident in that, then I can more freely give myself, whether it's time, energy, effort, money, to where I want my impact to be. So my impact needs might be different than yours, right? Like I want to give to the church, certain charities I support, which would be different from what you or somebody else may support. But the consistent theme there is you will not do the extra if you haven't done the basics, if you don't have enough.
It's almost like the airline analogy of when the oxygen masks come down, you want to put it on yourself before you put it on someone else, just so that you're confident and you can help people better.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. In the book, you tell a story, and the characters in the book, and I'm sure that the names have been changed to protect people and all that good stuff, is about Henry and Ava. Tell us about that story.
Let me set that up a little bit. So that one was about having financial confidence. At the time, so Henry and Ava, they were late 60s, and they wanted to retire. Her more than him, actually.
Okay.
And so at the time, I was working more of a consulting role. So I would work with advisors to help them do their retirement plans. So they bring this stuff to us, and we would look at, so okay, here's what they can do, here's what they should do. And so every year, this advisor team comes to us, and we look at this Henry and Ava's retirement plan, and they could retire. They had enough, and they had all these dreams, or all these things they were going to do in retirement. They wanted to travel. They wanted to spend time with their grandkids. They wanted to be more involved in their church. All this, they had all these beautiful plans.
Yeah.
Beautiful plans. But Henry was caught up on this. It was $2 million, the number stuck in his head. He said, when I have $2 million, then I feel like I'm good. Then I can retire. Reality is he could retire on significantly less than that. But that was the number he wanted. And every year we tell these advisors, hey, this guy can retire. They should retire. Go spend time with the grandkids. Go do the trade. Go all these dreams, right?
Yeah.
And so now you fast forward 4 years later, and the Henry and Ava are coming in for the review, and now they're on the right of that $2 million number. So I'm talking to this about, I'm like, oh, this is the year. Here we go. This guy's going to retire. And he doesn't show up for his meeting. And he doesn't call either. And so typically when somebody does like a no-show, no-call, like you did something wrong or something happened, right? And so I told these guys, I said, I don't know, you might be getting fired. I don't know. What'd you do? What'd you do? And they weren't. And I think you probably know where I'm going with this. About 2 weeks later, he got a call. It wasn't Henry, but Ava, the wife, passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. And so for me, I'll tell you, Paul, that was a perspective shift for me from a career point of view.
Yeah.
When I looked at that, I thought, man, if they'd been my clients, I feel like I could have given them the confidence necessary to actually retire. And the trajectory of their life would have been much, much different. So all the dreams they had, all the things they wanted to do together, now they couldn't do. Not because they didn't have enough. It's because they didn't have the confidence necessary to make the decision to retire. And so at that point, again, from a career perspective, that's when I shifted my focus to actually working with clients again. And I'll be honest, like Henry, he didn't make it too much farther past that. And it was sad. But it's an example of sometimes it's more than just the numbers. It's about having the confidence necessary to make the decision.
And I think that story perfectly captures the idea. It's beyond enough because, or you tell me, how common is that for a scenario like that to happen where just people don't have that confidence?
That's exactly it. And I would say that it happens more often than you want to hear about. People will delay for some arbitrary reason. It's not because the reason is not maybe valid in their own mind. I said it certainly is. People have their own reasons for what they do. However, a lot of that delay, procrastination, comes down to lack of confidence in the plans they have in place, knowing that they are going to be okay. If you knew for certainty that you could retire today, spend time with your grandkids, spend time with your spouse, do all the things you want to do, if you know for certainty that you could do that, most people would. But you'll see people stay in a job that they hate, that stresses them out, that's difficult on them physically, because they are not confident that they can actually pull the trigger on retirement. So the objective there is to give them the confidence necessary to be able to make those decisions and then go on to do more than just retire. Have an impact, again, whether it's on family, church, community, whatever. Everybody wants more than, or they should want more than just themselves.
Awesome. Great story. Next question. In the book, you talk about 3 key parts of financial planning. I guess this is the quote unquote secret sauce to help people have that confidence. Tell us about the 3 key parts of financial planning.
Yeah. So when we talk about the 3 key parts, 3 pillars of financial planning, I'll name them for you first, and I'll tell you why they're important.
Yeah.
First one is resource allocation. Resource allocation deals with what you have now. And that's not only your financial, what you have, what you're saving, what you're spending, what you're investing, but your time, your energy, your effort. These are all your resources. Resource allocation. How do you spend that time, energy, effort, and money? Retirement income. Look, when you stop working, you don't have a paycheck. And so you got to have a plan around how are you going to replace that income. And the third piece is risk management. Risk management deals with all the things that could derail a retirement. And so you have to have all three. A lot of times what you'll see is people will focus on one to the exclusion of another. I'll give you an example. Let's say you walk in, you go talk to somebody that's solely focused on risk management. They may only talk about like insurance, and not focusing on what are you doing for your other investments or assets, resources, right? You go talk to somebody that's solely focused on just investments and managing money. That's what they're going to be focused on. And so they ignore other pieces. So true financial planning really takes into account all three. We had a client that comes in, and so we're not a client, a time client now. And we come in and we're taking a look at all the things they have set up. They're already retired. Okay, let's just say they're already retired. And they come in and say, okay, now that you're retired, how are you generating your income? His answer is, when I need money, I sell some stuff and I take some money out.
From his stocks. From his investments.
From his portfolio. I said, okay, so what is your plan around that? He said, we have a 60-40 portfolio. Is there an actual plan around distribution management resources?
No.
And the answer was no. He just had a portfolio that he was selling when he needed to take money out. But how do we address that? In that case, they were just focused on one piece, the investments. So their plan was a 60-40 allocation. That's not a plan. When we looked at it, the risk you run, I only just we cover the risks. And so when generating a retirement income plan, the risk he was running, if you are selling money, if you're selling investments to generate your income, the market goes up and down. If you're selling into a down market, all you do is compound the declines in your portfolio. That's a mathematical issue. So you run the risk of running out of money because you don't have a proper retirement income plan because your resources were not properly allocated. As we're talking our way through this, the guy knew he had a problem, right? What it was. He knew it didn't feel right what he was doing, but he didn't know what the issue was or how to fix it. And so the answer in his case, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit later on, is we looked at what he needed to spend, and then we allocated some of his resources, some of his investments, to very short-term conservative that we could draw against so that we didn't have to worry about market declines to get him his money. We set up systematic payments so we knew exactly what we were dealing with. And so that eliminated the risk of selling into a down market. He had a retirement income plan and his resources were properly allocated. Now there's more to what we did for him, but that's an example of making sure we hit all three of those pillars. And so the net result is now the guy's not worried anymore about market decline. He doesn't care. He's out fishing on the lake. He's not looking at the market. He's not worried about, is the market down? Should I sell? Should I not sell? Where do I get my money from? He's got a plan. So now when you talk to me, he doesn't even look at it anymore. He's just enjoying his time with his family and fishing. This particular guy likes to fish. So.
That's great. Yeah. It's interesting, like just in the recent volatility we've had, I understand these concepts. My time horizon for retirement's ways off. So I'm like, I want to buy more.
Yep. And the problem is, too, if you focus on one to the exclusion of others, right? We talk about like pillars, like three pillars. The whole thing, the whole house crumbles. So you have to take, or you should take, a holistic view that encompasses all three. What are we doing with our current resources? How are we generating retirement income that will last? And finally, what risk could derail us? And how do we handle those risks? Again, like you said earlier, nobody's got a crystal ball. I don't got an expiration date, but I can be fundamentally sound in terms of how we view the different areas.
And as part of that, just the confidence. You always hear about the stock market, the roller coaster, and just, of course, the news media is geared towards trying to scare you about that. But my understanding, based on how you explained it in just the book, is that really you don't need to worry about that. If you have it properly allocated, as you described both now and in the book, you can turn off the news. You can go fishing. You can do those things because you have that proper plan that foresees these things, can predict these things, and can handle these things.
Well, and it allows you to focus on the things that are important.
Okay.
The market going up and down is not important. I mean, it's impactful. The important things are how are you spending time with your family? How are you impacting the community? What are you doing for your health? What's the important things? Worrying about the market going up and down. That's stressful and counterproductive. And that's why you do need to have a plan. And that's the importance of proper planning.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew, I understand from reading your book that you and your family enjoy pizza.
Yeah, we do.
Tell us the pizza story.
Okay, so let me say this. So we're talking about resource allocation, right? So one of the things that we advocate for is at year end, doing a good review of your spending, right? Like, where did you actually spend your money? And so because we do eat our own cooking here, like the stuff we tell people they should do, we do ourselves, right? Yeah. At the end of every year, I get my annual credit card summary, and I download that to Excel, and I sort it out. Okay, where am I spending my money on? And a couple years back, so we go through that exercise. And one of my key spending partners, I guess, was Papa Murphy's. Are you familiar with Papa Murphy's? Do you know what that is?
Heard the name. I don't think I've been there before, but I've heard the name.
Okay, if you get to Wisconsin, they're awesome. It's a take and bake pizza place. That was the go-to for our family. So it was like, oh, kids are practiced late, or I don't feel like cooking, or maybe I'm just tired, or hey, let's do a fun thing. It was always, let's get Pop Murphy's. So now I got 3 kids and a wife at home. Everybody wants something different, Paul, and everybody wants a different dessert.
Sure.
So when all's said and done, you spend a fair amount on pizza. And so we looked at our annual review. We dropped about $6,000 on pizza and went out. It wasn't all Pop Murphy's. That'd be a lot of take and bake. But it was like, holy cow, we spent how much? I called my wife and I said, do you have any idea how much we spent on pizza last year? No. So anyway, I had to explain that to her. And so we decided we needed to cut back a little bit on the pizza. It was no longer a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. It was probably better health-wise
Sure.
as well. And I know the kids didn't like it so much, but now I think we appreciate it more when we get it.
So when working with clients, that was your own personal example of discovering unusual spending behavior. When you work with clients, what's or any stories about just some of the things that you've helped clients discover about their own spending behaviors?
Here's what happens. When you do the spending review, if you ask somebody how much you spend on a monthly basis, they'll quote you probably the mortgage, utilities, and people always underestimate what they spend. And so when you go back and look at the spending review, it's always these little things that add up on you. A good example, so we had a client come in, and he was in his 50s, and he was a little bit behind on his retirement savings. He needed to amp that up a little bit. Okay? He's a single guy. And so we took a look at where he spent money. There's a local pub that he would stop by about 3 times a week. He wasn't spending a ton, but by the time you get your burger and your beer, maybe another beer, dice shaking you, and you buy around for your buddies.
Sure.
All of a sudden you're $50-$60 deep, 3 times a week, $180.
Yep.
You're north of 60. He was actually close to about $700 a month on average. He was spending at the local pub. Man, that adds up.
Almost $10,000 a year.
Yeah, you can more than fund your Roth. When we're looking at some of the easier decisions to make, sometimes it's eye-opening to say, oh man, I spent how much on pizza? Wait, how much did I spend at the bar? And if you can go 2 nights a week as opposed to 3, or maybe it's maybe you go on the wing special night or something, right? Or you buy the Pop Murphy's when it's on a Tuesday deals. You can cut back, and that by cutting back, you don't want to deny, right? We didn't look at it and say, we're never eating pizza and you can never go to that bar again. That'd be ridiculous. People aren't going to do that. But you can make the intentional decision to cut back and reallocate those resources elsewhere. And so I think that's why it's important to do that spending or that expense review at year end. Where did your resources go?
You said it, but it's amazing how these seemingly little things that we spend money on and we don't really think about add up. And so it's just bringing that additional layer of awareness to it. You can find some interesting spending habits.
And it's interesting too, because you can tell where people's priorities lie based on where they put their dollar. If you have somebody that comes in and says, hey, I'm really prioritizing my retirement savings. I really want to retire. And then you look at the resources and they're contributing the minimum to their 401k and spend all the money at the bar. Is retirement really a priority? Or if somebody says, well, I prioritize my impact, I want to prioritize giving money to the church. And then you look at their spending patterns and they're giving $100 a month to the church and spending $6,000 a year on pizza or something. Then where does your priority? So I think doing the review does allow you to prioritize what you're doing. Make sure your resources are moving you towards your ultimate goal.
I think you use the word with just intentionality. It's making a conscious decision. You can do both. You can do either. You can do what you want, but it's just making sure you're being intentional.
Yes.
That leads into my next question, which is in the book, you talk about how if you cut $1,000 in monthly expenses, that could mean that you need about $300,000 less for retirement. That's huge. On one level, it's, pizza, is that a big deal? The bar, is that a big deal? But when you quantify it like that, that's huge.
Yep, agreed. And so the reason we put that in the book was to offer perspective. If you go, so let's say right now, like some of the common searches are, how much do I need to retire? You go to Google, right?
Yep.
Or how much can I spend in retirement? A general rule of thumb that you will see is you'll see what they call the 4% withdrawal rule. And basically what that says is if you want your money to last throughout a 30-plus year retirement, you can safely withdraw 4% of your portfolio on an annual basis. Now, I'm not advocating for that. I'm not a rule of thumb guy because everybody's different. But I put that in there to share perspective. It's about a perspective shift because people do look at this stuff and that is what you will see. You go hit the Google machine, right? What the 4% rule says, if you want to sustain your income, you can take out 4% of your portfolio. For example, you have $1 million. The 4% rule says you can take out $40,000 a year. That's the rule. Where we talk about if you can reduce your savings by $1,000 a month, what is the impact of that? I give you the math. I don't want to go through a lot of numbers because nobody's going to write them down. It's tough to visualize them. But it's $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year. If I want to have a sustained $12,000 a year based on the 4% rule of thumb. You divide 12,000 by 4%, that gives you $300,000. So if you can cut back or reduce your spending, your unnecessary spending by $1,000 a month, that's $300,000 less you have to have in retirement. And I would take that one a step further, okay? Because here we're talking about resource allocation, spending versus saving, spending versus withdrawing, right? And so when you get into retirement and you have to rely on a portfolio to generate income, what you spend matters. What you take out matters. Now, if you're 5 years, 10 years, 15 years before retirement, it matters what you do with those savings. I'll give you an example. Let's say you cut the $1,000 a month. And you take that $1,000 a month and you then invest that and you allow that money to grow. You'll have significantly more towards retirement. But that said, not everybody can say, well, super, Andrew, I'll just go save $1,000 a month. That's not realistic. But let's take a different tack. So going back to the pizza. So on here, again, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. Let's say we're able to reduce our pizza habit by $375 a month. Okay, so rather than buying pizza with that, you invest it. And you get, let's say, again, 8% rate of return. You invest it over the next 15 years. That $375 a month grows to over $129,000 under those assumptions. So not only are you spending less and needing less in retirement, but you actually have more.
So you're both spending less and have more, which I would imagine allows you to have more confidence and have additional cash flow to determine what's actually most important.
Correct. Because it doesn't do you any good to say, you know what, I'm going to cut back on my pizza habit and now I'm going to spend more on bourbon.
Sure.
That's counterproductive. That's just shifting expenses. So when we talk about pre-retirement, if you can cut back on those expenses and actually save or invest that money, not only will you need less in retirement, but you will have more.
What do you find how do you guide clients to manage their spending? And what I mean by that, I think you said it is, okay, I'm going to be intentional about eating less pizza, or I'm going to be intentional about going to the bar less, but then your spending shows up somewhere else because we're human beings, right? What do you encourage people to do? Annual look back, or do you encourage them to do anything in terms of budgeting? How do you help guide people so that they can actually be intentional and lock in their spending habits?
Yeah, so it's both. So one is having an understanding of what and where your money is going. So how are you spending that money? And then being intentional about where you send that money. Now, people won't do that unless they can see what the impact of that is. I'm a big fan of setting up systematic programs. So if I tell Joe that, hey, we're going to cut back $100 a month at the bar. Now, rather than just letting that sit in his checking account, he would set that up systematically to go to some sort of investment vehicle that takes it off the plate. So it's about being intentional with not only understanding where are you spending, how do you have to cut that back, but then when you do that, where do you reallocate those resources? Now, it might be reallocating that towards paying down debt. It might be reallocating it towards an investment account. It might be bumping up your 401k. Everybody's different. But the consistent thing is understanding where you're spending your money, then understanding where you want your money to go and what you want it to do for you. And if you can get a handle on that, again, that goes back to resource allocation. If you can get a handle on that, what do you have? What are you spending? What are you doing with it? And how is that going to impact you in the future? You put together a pretty good financial plan.
Part of what I heard or took away from that is that you don't want to just have that difference in money sitting there in your checking account. It's almost, I'll use the metaphor or the analogy of dieting. It's like my wife makes me a good meal and it's portion control, but then she has something right next to it. It's like, oh, if you want to help yourself to seconds, you can. I'm going to likely help myself. Whereas if I just know that this is my meal and that's it, I'm going to enjoy the meal.
That's another good analogy. I like that, Paul. Well done. That's exactly right. You don't want to have the portion control meal sitting next to a plate of cookies.
Exactly. So Social Security is a big topic for people. For many people, it's their only guaranteed source of income.
Yep.
And I've read different books and I've heard from different people on podcasts and whatnot, different strategies. And in your book, you challenge the idea that waiting until 70 is always the best move. What are your thoughts on Social Security?
Yeah, so you're right. Social Security it's a huge decision, huge impact, big dollars when you take the totality of what people get over time. So you're right. That is a decision people want to get right. And there should be thoughtful analysis because everybody is different. But I will tell you, if you go out and ask 10 advisors, when should somebody take Social Security? 9 of them are going to say at 70. Why is that? Because they get more. Okay, super. How does that actually impact them? And where I challenge the assumptions sometimes, we had a prospective client that was coming in. They wanted to retire. We ran the numbers. They could retire, and they had an advisor. And they said, my advisor is telling me to wait till 70 to retire. They're 67. They're saying that my advisor is telling me to wait till 70 to retire. So why is that? And I said, well, I get more Social Security, so I'll be a little better off. So now when you ran the numbers, they'd be better off 30 years from now. But him telling them they had to wait till 70 didn't give them the confidence necessary to be able to retire now when they could. They could retire at 67. In their case, they did need to take Social Security to have the confidence. They wanted that guarantee, because you're right, it's only guaranteed income, not pensions. And so they opted to take the Social Security at full retirement age rather than waiting till 70 because it gave them the confidence to be able to walk away from the job. and spend the time with family and themselves and enjoy their lives. Goes back to what you said before. We don't know our expiration date. Now, if they'd have waited until 70 and they'd have more income, and 20 years from now, they'd have more money. Super. But they would not have gotten back those 3 years. Those 3 years of creating memories with themselves, their family, the experiences they had. If they waited till 70, just because somebody told them they probably should, because they might have a little more money, they would have missed it, and they cannot get that time back. You can't get that time back. So when you make the Social Security decision, I believe there has to be thoughtful analysis around when and how, why. Because in some cases, yes, if you run the numbers, you would have a little more money when you're 85 years old if you waited.
If you make it that long.
If you make it that long. Because that's, again, we don't know. So when you look at the Social Security decision, because that is one of those things, having that guaranteed income does impact confidence.
I can imagine.
And so that's where when you get into the financial planning is a bit of an art and a science. Because people don't have the confidence to retire, but they could or should, because you gave them a false sense that they have to wait. I think that's doing them a disservice. And so I do challenge you have to wait till 70. No, you don't. You have to retire when it's right for you and make the Social Security decision that will allow you to have confidence in your retirement and stay retired. I've seen some of these financial plans who run the Monte Carlo analysis, giving you a percentage likelihood of success. If you wait till 70, your confidence percentage is 96. Oh, that's awesome. What is it if I retire right now and take it 93?
It sounds pretty good to me.
Okay, I'll take it. So making that decision requires more thoughtful analysis than what I think a lot of people go through.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that there's the math, and then there's the math applied to the person. And ultimately, it's what's driving the person. What are their values? What are their goals? What's important to them? And it ties back into the beginning story with Ava. It's, do we have enough? And that's where the recommendations, imagine, need to be based on math, but also tied to the person, their goals, their values, etc.
Absolutely right.
The premise of the book, and really the subtitle of the book, is it's a guide to financial confidence and meaningful impact. So let's switch gears a little bit and tell us about the qualified charitable distribution strategy. What is that, and how is that, and why is that important to people who are looking to make that broader impact with their resources?
Let me first set up what that is, why it's important. So the qualified charitable distribution is a rule that says that you can send money after age 70 and a half directly from your IRA to a qualified charity. When you do that, you don't pay taxes. It's not income to you. It's sent directly. You don't take possession. You send it directly to the charity. This is one of the tools that I think is underutilized in financial planning. We're involved in a lot of the community events, right? And a consistent conversation I have when I talk to people that they're in their 70s. You talk to them, are you retired? Yep, I'm retired. Super. Are you drawing money out of your IRA? Only because I have to, so you don't need to? No, I don't need to take that money, but I got to take it out. Okay, fine. Are you given to church or charity? Of course I am. Okay, super. Wouldn't it be nice if you could take your money, rather than taking your money out of your IRA and paying taxes on it and then sending it to the church or charity, wouldn't it be nice if you could not pay the tax at all and just send it directly to them? And all these people are like, hold on, you can do that? You can do that? Yeah, you could do that. There are two consistent themes around these people that we talk to. One is they're impact-minded, right? They're giving people. They're charitable people. The second consistent theme is they all have advisors. They all have advisors. How can you increase your impact with that? Well, let's say I want to give $8,000 to the church.
Yeah.
But I pay 20% in taxes. So in order to give $8,000 to the church, I would take $10,000 out of my IRA, then $2,000 to the IRS, and $8,000 to the church. My alternative would be, rather than doing it that way, how about I just send $10,000 to the church to cut the IRS out? Unless you feel like your impact is you want to give more to the IRS.
Let's be honest. Have you been a single person that's been like, I want to give more to the IRS?
Don't. And I tell you, sometimes I'll ask these people, so are you the person that checks the box to give extra? I don't know anybody doing that. But I do know that you can increase your impact.
It's like, this to me is I don't think I've heard this explained the way that you just said it. So I don't think that this has been on my radar. And do people realize this? Because it seems like a huge difference if your intent is to make impact, and instead of paying the tax and then make an impact at a lower level, you can just make more impact that way. It seems huge.
I think it is. And I think where I think that's big is like for some of these organizations that do have people giving, they should be talking to folks about this. You look at your giving roles, and you know that the 73-year-old is giving you $5,000, whatever the number is, right? If they're just cutting you a check, it's not coming right from their IRA, there's probably an opportunity to enhance the impact there. Again, if we can enhance what's going to these charitable organizations, that's a good thing. And it's a simple technique. Simple, but it's not widely talked about. And it's not widely known, be it the folks we talk to. And again, consistently, they all had advisors. But I think that would be an example of advisors focus on one thing, exclusive of others. That's the ones that have an advisor, but their financial plan is a 60-40 allocation, not looking at the total picture and how can they maximize what they're doing. So no, I love the QCD concept. I've personally seen people enhance their impact after we talk to them.
Yeah.
They like it. They appreciate it. Organizations appreciate it. I'm not a huge fan of that particular.
I feel like good in two ways. It's like I feel good about not giving it to the government, and then better and then great about giving it to the cause that I actually care about.
Same. Yep.
That's awesome. In your book, you emphasize taking action, not just planning. So, question is, why do so many good financial plans collect dust?
That's a good question. I think it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to accountability and procrastination. Here's what happens sometimes. You get this nice financial plan done. It says, hey, Paul, you're saving enough. You're doing all these good things. You need to adjust this and that, and you'll be fine. And you get that plan and say, oh, that's great. Hey, I'm in good shape. I got to make some changes. I'm going to take that home, and I'm going to look at it. You go home, it's going to hit the shelf, hit the cylindrical file. It's not getting looked at. And what you do, you dust that
Because
thing
what I heard from you is that I'm pretty much in good shape. I don't need to worry about these things, at least not for now.
I'm solid. I don't need to do anything at all. And then they maybe go back and meet with their planner a year later and they get an update or something like that. So nothing actually happens within the plan. So part of, we talk about like accountability, having accountability partners, whether that's your spouse, a mentor, your advisor, whoever. I think accountability is a key piece to actually implementing a plan. So there should be nobody's in perfect shape.
No.
Financially. Not me, not you, not anybody. There's always stuff we need to and should be doing. And so having an accountability partner says, okay, Paul, you need to get this done by end of March 31st or whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the day is. And then being able to circle back to that partner and them saying, hey, Paul, you were supposed to do this. You do that. And when you reschedule that meeting because you didn't do it.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, funny how that works. It's crazy. And then the second piece is just procrastination, right? The status quo is always easier. It's always easier to do nothing. Right? The most common one that gets kicked down the road is the estate planning. So where that could hurt somebody. I had a friend of mine that lived in a different state. I wasn't licensed there. I wasn't the family advisor. He called me up and said, hey, can you take a quick look? My dad's sick and I want to just make sure that everything's okay. I said, yeah, let me send it to me. I'll take a look. And we did a review. And in this case, I looked at one of his accountants. Boy, I said, you don't have a beneficiary on that account. You need to add a beneficiary to that account. So what can I do? I said, call the broker, make sure they do it, right? Well, they did. My understanding is they did call the broker. But the broker and the gentleman kicked the can down the road, and they didn't do it. So you fast forward, it was probably 9 months or so, and then the gentleman passes away. So now my friend calls me and says, hey, can you help me with this stuff? I said, yeah, I'll take a look, right? And you know what wasn't done? Beneficiary change. You know what they had to do? Probate. That was awful for them.
Yeah.
And so accountability and procrastination, I think, is why things don't get done. People kick it down the road because it does you no good to set up a beautiful plan with action steps, all these beautiful things you're going to do, and they're not doing anything. What was the point? You're not going to actually do something with the information.
In your book, you talk about the 3-bucket system for retirement income. Tell me about that.
That's similar part of the conversation we had before with the client that came in, that had their portfolio and they were selling. We had to generate a plan around retirement income. The general plan is this. We take very much, I call it a functional approach to investments. We talk about allocating those investment resources. So everything there is supposed to do a job for you. So when you talk about the 3-bucket system, the first bucket is your operating money. And so that's a very conservative, I'm going to spend that money this year, 6 months, 2 months, whatever. I know I'm going to spend that money. So when I allocate the resource towards that bucket, that's my near-term spending. And with that money, I want to be like no risk, because I know I'm going to spend that money. And there's you can do different amounts, but I like to have anywhere from 1 to 3 years and very conservative. I know I'm going to spend it. So that's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 is more of I call it a medium-term kind of portfolio. And I'm going to use that portfolio to replenish my near-term bucket. That will be invested for some kind of growth. And so what happens there, as you spend down bucket number 1, ideally, if you get market gains, you can replenish from bucket number 2. Now, let's say I don't. Let's say we go through a period of time where the market is down. I'm not going to be replenishing. Market's down, I'm not pulling out of bucket 2 to go to bucket 1. But if you think about it psychologically, for the client, market decline is not comfortable for anybody. Nobody likes it. But if me as a client knows that I have 1 to 3 years sitting in a secure bucket, I can weather that storm a little better. And again, in good years, you're going to replenish. Again, psychologically, that concept says, I'm okay. You're okay. We can weather these storms. The third bucket is our long-term bucket. That's the money we ideally, we're setting aside for long-term care. We're setting aside for the kids. I hope to never touch it. You can maybe be a little more aggressive with that money because I have no intention of touching it anytime in the near term. Right? So you talk about the 3 buckets, and the advantage of the clients is that they know all their different areas are covered. They don't have to worry about what they saw on the news, what they saw on CNBC. Oh my goodness, the market's down, or it's up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they have a plan in place. That bucket system has a plan in place. How are they going to actually functionally manage their retirement income?
I was say that, and this essentially it deals with the sequence of returns risk.
Correct. And that goes back, sequence of return risk, that goes back to if I'm taking out money in a down market, I have to make more to get it back. It's a mathematical problem.
And the years in the 3 buckets, that's based off of, I'm guessing, just historical data in terms of
Yeah, that's all individualized. If you have somebody that's got a great amount of fixed income, Social Security, and pension. Maybe you need less than that goes back to the art and science. So there's no hard and fast. Like you need to have 1.72 years of, no, it all depends. That's where we get into the individualization.
I'm glad that you said that. It's good to know because I look at some of these things sometimes online, like you said, the 4% rule, and it's like, really? I've enjoyed our conversation so far, and just in starting to wrap up a little bit, I have a few more questions for you. If someone only remembers one thing from your book or even this conversation, what would you like that one thing to be? What would you like their takeaway to be?
Our premise is that most people want to have an impact greater than themselves, whether it's on their church, charity, community, family, whatever, but they can't do it unless they know that they have enough. That's our starting premise. But I'll follow that up with a lot of people don't go on to have the impact that they want. And the reason they don't is because they don't take action. A lot of people will read books, they'll listen to podcasts, they'll go watch a video, they'll go down the YouTube rabbit hole, and then they don't do anything. So the one thing I would like them to take away from that, from this book or this conversation, is you have to take action or nothing will happen. If there are concepts that resonate with you, take action. Go do something. Have the conversation. Meet with your spouse. Assess what you want to have your impact to be. Assess where you are, but actually take the action steps. So if I had one key thing, take action. Make some kind of decision and do something.
I totally agree about action. I think for me personally, my one nugget of new information that I haven't heard elsewhere is that I forget the exact name of it, but the ability to go directly from IRA tax-free
qualified charitable distribution. Yep.
Qualified charitable distribution, because that's something that I haven't really at least paid attention to. So I think that's huge.
That's an awareness thing. So a lot of times you see these like capital campaigns and charities and all that. They talk about all the stuff they can do with the money, and they ask for it. I think that the joke I heard that I liked was, the good news is we have the money. The bad news is it's in your bank account.
I haven't heard that before. I like that.
Yeah, I like that one. And so being able to show people better ways to enhance their giving without enhancing their outflow. So if I can give you more, but I'm either giving $10,000, 8's going to you and 2's going to the IRS, or I can give you 10. What would you rather do, Mr. Charitable Giver?
Why isn't every single church leader or anyone that receives donations having this conversation?
I don't know. That's a good question. I did talk to a local church leader that had the conversation. He said, oh, it's great. I love it. We don't enhance our giving. I'm like, that's great. I said, they did it. But here's the kicker, though. I said, yeah. I said, they can start doing it at 70 and a half. He goes, no, when they start taking their required minimum distributions, because they changed rules on required minimum distributions to bump your age back. So it's no longer 70 and a half. They did not change the rules for the qualified charitable distribution. So it doesn't have to be your required minimum distribution. But he was one that had done some research and was communicating that to his parish and had enhanced his giving. But even he didn't know. You can get an extra couple years of giving out of them. He didn't know that. And so even the ones that do and are talking about it, and he did say that was at least for his parish, they were able to significantly enhance what was given. Again, it's shifting dollars. Where do you want it to go? Church or the IRS? Charity or the IRS? Your call.
That's a motivator right there for me.
Exactly.
For someone who's either listened to this conversation or has finished reading Beyond Enough and feels inspired, what's the first step that they should take? Or what's the next thing that they should do? Talking about accountability and action, what's the next thing that you would advise them to do?
The next thing I would advise them to do is I would do some self-reflection on what is actually important to them. Where do they want to have their impact? What goals are important to them? And again, it's different for everybody. But if I don't know what's important, then I can't take the steps necessary. I can't allocate my decisions. I can't adjust my decisions to what's important if I don't understand it. So the first thing I would do is I would sit down and I'd do some self-reflection. What am I actually, where I want my impact to be? And what am I actually looking to accomplish? Once I've done that, then I would sit down with someone and figure, and so what do I have to do? Meet with somebody and have the conversation around what should I be doing? This is what's important to me. Now, what do I need to do? What action steps do I need to take in order to actually accomplish that goal? This is important to you. And again, your impact, your importance is different than mine, different than Joe and Sally, right?
Yeah.
But you have to do the self-reflection and decide what is actually important. And then you have to decide it's important enough to actually do something. It doesn't do you any good to talk about it, think about it, do nothing.
Do you find that people that come to you, do they typically have an advisor, but maybe they've outgrown the relationship? Or do you find that they don't have an advisor? Or do you find that they have more of that narrow, not comprehensive planner where they just do one narrow thing?
It's a combination. I think the vast majority have probably outgrown or are looking for more than what they're getting currently. Or alternatively, they've done all their savings in a 401k or something like that and never really sat with a planner. And sometimes people come and they have a good financial planner who's covered all the bases. And they just want some assurance that they're doing things right. I would say having a good financial planner, and there are lots of good ones out there, it's important. But the ones that come to us typically, like you say, have outgrown and are looking for more as a transition towards retirement or transition towards being able to have more impact.
And you're located in Wisconsin. Do you work with people only in Wisconsin, or do you work with people in other states as well?
No, we work with people in other states as well. Yeah, we're in Wisconsin. Yep.
Do you find today that more meetings are virtual or in person, or what are your
I still
thoughts?
prefer, Paul, I still prefer in person. I like to be able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hands, really get to know them. I greatly prefer in person. Although we do have clients that move throughout the country.
Sure.
Much as I'd like to tell my wife I'm flying down to Florida in wintertime for client meetings. We certainly do the virtual meetings, but I greatly prefer face to face. I'd rather be able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hands, and really get to know them.
Final question for someone that wants a copy of the book and or to connect with you, what should they do?
Yeah, so book's available on Amazon. It's Beyond Enough by Andrew LaFontain. If they want to connect with me personally, the best way is probably through LinkedIn. It's Andrew LaFontain, no E on the end. A lot of people do that over in Brookfield, Wisconsin. I think that'd be the best way to connect. Happy to chat.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew LaFontaine, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Paul.